The Minnesota Vikings hold the 11th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. We've talked ad nauseum about maybe selecting a quarterback with that 11th overall pick. But today we're going to talk about going maybe a different direction. That's because Daniel Jeremiah, who is known for his mock drafts and going to the scouting combine, that's really when you start hearing his name talking about all these college athletes. Well, he finally released his first mock draft for basically all 32 NFL teams for the first round, and he has an interesting selection and actually a top prospect on the defensive side of the ball for the Minnesota Vikings to take at number 11. I have some thoughts on this. We'll get to that at the end of the video, but let's get right into it. Before we do that, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much appreciated. So here we go. The Minnesota Vikings are an interesting team to draft for in the 2024 NFL mock drafts. They have needs all over that could be justified with a first-round pick. One of those is defensive tackle, okay? And that is the direction that NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah went in his first mock draft of the cycle. At the 11th overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings selected Texas defensive tackle Byron Murphy II. Not only, is he a talented player, but now the Vikings would have two Byron Murphys on their roster. I don't know why they decided to include that, but it would be kind of sweet and be interesting, and both play on the defensive side of the ball. Now here's what Jeremiah had to say about Murphy's selection. He said, "I believe Murphy is the top defensive tackle in this class. The Vikings need to add more firepower up front." That is all he said about him. Okay, and I went through and dove through his highlights, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit, and I think he's definitely up there. I'm not sure if he's the top because I'm not going to go look at all the defensive tackles out there at this point in time, unless you guys want me to, or at least look at a certain player. Then you guys can let me know. But Murphy was on one of the best defensive fronts in the country next to Tavondre Sweat and was a force in both the running game and passing game. Is he worth a selection that high? That can be debated, but Jeremiah usually knows a thing or two, and this should be taken seriously. So it said right there he was a force in both the running game and passing game. When I went and looked at his highlights, Byron Murphy's highlights on the defensive line, he has a massive presence. Okay, every time they were running up the middle, it seemed as if they were only going to get 2 to 3 yards a run because Byron Murphy was basically going to fall on top of the running back every single time. He finds a way to sheds the blocks, I should say, quick enough to wrap that running back up and bring him to the ground. And he's a big dude. Okay, he's a strong, big dude. And in Texas, I think they're kind of known for having that type of mentality, especially on that defensive line. They've always kind of had a somewhat good defense. I mean, there's been years where they haven't, but Byron Murphy brings a great presence. Didn't really see much in the passing game, just because it seemed as if he didn't really have any finesse moves. If you played Madden, you kind of understand what that means. What I mean by that is a bull rush. He really doesn't have too much of that. He's strong, but there's times where he does get stood up, and it's hard for him to get through. But that could be, maybe he's just cautious about the run and wants to make sure the quarterback stays in the pocket compared to, being overly aggressive, and then bam, the quarterback squeaks through the middle and he's gone for a couple yards. But I liked his film for the most part. At 11, I'd be okay with it. I really would, but that would also have to mean that the Vikings need to either sign Kirk Cousins, or you have to draft a quarterback in the second round, or if you have to, trade up, trade a second round or a fourth round pick to get back into that first round, late in that first round, and take the guy that you think is that you want, I should say, because there's Bo Nix that could slip, Michael Penix could slip deep in that first round, maybe the second round, J.J. McCarthy could slip, so there's that chance that we could snag somebody else at the 11th overall pick, Byron Murphy being one, and at defensive tackle is a position that we do need. Harrison Phillips is good, he's not great, okay? We need to find a way to bolster, and like Daniel Jeremiah said, add more firepower up front, because we need to find a way to stop the run at a higher rate. Can't allow these 3 to 6 yard gains every single play. It's nonsense. It needs to stop. And we also need it on the defensive line, because who knows what the future of Danielle Hunter is. We have no idea. Right now there's speculation that he could move elsewhere because he becomes a free agent in March. And if he leaves, boy, that defensive line is going to be in some trouble if we don't get some help. So why not get an interior guy where we already have plenty of depth, I think, at the defensive end position, where we have, DJ Wanham, Patrick Jones, and the list kind of goes on and on. So if we lose Danielle Hunter, it would suck. But if we draft Byron Murphy with that 11th overall pick, which I think you could argue would be a decent pick, like he said, any pick for the Vikings, I think at number 11 would be a pretty good one, just because we have holes on the roster that we need to fill: cornerback, defensive tackle, linebacker, running back, quarterback. I mean, the list kind of, you understand there's a lot of places that the Vikings need to draft at. But Byron Murphy being a defensive tackle and being one of the top, if not the top defensive tackle in the National Football or in the NCAA going into the draft, I think it'd be a decent selection. But again, I'm going to say it, need a quarterback. Need a quarterback. I don't care who it is. But if you think you can wait to draft that quarterback, then do so and fix the defense. At least help the defense out a little bit, because it was way better than it was just a year ago. But Daniel Jeremiah has the Minnesota Vikings selecting top defensive tackle from Texas, Byron Murphy II. You guys let me know your thoughts on that selection. Also drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much, much appreciated. Have a great rest of your night, folks, and Skol Vikes.